Hi, this is Dana with NAP. I want to show you how to identify and pull garlic mustard, Alliaria petiolata. So, just like narrowleaf bittercress and Dame's Rocket, it's one of the three very early spring invasives that we find in our woodlands here in the Ann Arbor area, and has some similarities because they're all in the Brassica or mustard family. So one of those similarities is this purplish color you find at the base of the stem. Now these stems, you can see the hairs on them. Sometimes you notice these hairs, but they're very downy and soft as opposed to Dame's Rocket hairs, which are a lot more coarse and rough. But as you get toward the top of the plant, you don't notice those hairs, and the leaves are all hairless. Some other things that make it similar to those others: it grows in a basal rosette the first year, like a dandelion, just a low mound on the ground, maybe up to 6 inches tall. But then the second year, it bolts and sends up the stalk. And it is one of the earliest things to be quite tall and to bloom. Usually early to mid-May, it can already be flowering. And it's May 15th today, and these plants have already started to grow their seeds. So let's look at one of these garlic mustard plants in detail, and I'll show you some key features to look for. Here we have a garlic mustard. At the base, you see those purplish color in the stem. It was a rosette last year, so some of those basal rosette leaves are kind of turning yellow and dying already. And then we say it bolts, and it has these leaves which are heart or kidney shaped and quite rounded, and they're alternate up the stem, so one coming out not across from the other on the opposite side of the stem, but further up and further up and further up. So alternate leaves pattern. Now as you go up the stem, the leaves become smaller and get more triangular. Now each of these leaves is quite toothed. They have palmate veins, so it's kind of like a hand. All the veins are coming out from the center of the leaf. The leaves can really vary in size depending on the location of the plant. Also, the height of the plant can really vary in size. This one comes up to here on me, whereas some others that bloom might only be up to my knee. And they can be even shorter in blooming too. So sometimes if you don't have a big patch of it like we have here, you need to look around and make sure you've got it all. And it's pretty easy when it's blooming because you kind of look for those flowers. These stems further up are hairless, like I mentioned. And let's see it in comparison to some of our other common invasives. Right here we have some Dame's Rocket right there. This is all Dame's Rocket. One of the things I forgot to mention about the leaves, so this is called Alliaria. If you're unsure at all, ever unsure if it's garlic mustard, pull it, crush it, smell it. Smells like onions, like allium, the onion family. So that's where it gets the Alliaria name. And then the petiolata name comes from these long petioles. So each leaf is connected to the stem on a quite long petiole. So when it's windy, they can be quite bouncy in the wind, but that's where Alliaria petiolata. And you can see this one is already flowering. The flowers have 4 petals each. The flowers are about 1/3 of an inch to 1/4 inch across. There's 4 little petals in a cross. You can see how small they are from my hand. This plant has already started to go to seed. You see these long, slender calyx? That's the technical term for these narrow, skinny seed pods. Those are going to continue to get longer. They'll start to bulge with the seeds inside them, which will be oblong, oval, and black. They're green now. These things will get a lot longer, and as the season goes on, they'll turn yellowish. These plants will fade away, but these seed pods will stay, turn kind of papery and yellowish and then tan. And after that starts to happen, you want to stop pulling garlic mustard, because you could be dispersing more seed by trying to pull it at that stage than if you would just leave it where it is. One more thing about these garlic mustard saliques, these seed pods, they're very small right now, but they can be anywhere from 1 to 3 inches. So as this plant matures, these saliques are gonna get a lot bigger. And oftentimes later in the season, I can find garlic mustard just by looking for the saliques. Dame's Rocket and narrowleaf bittercress also will have saliques like that. So that's a good way to identify them. And how you pull it, you gotta grab it down really low at the base. I've been grabbing, these ones in this area are kind of on a hill and they seem to be very short, but you kind of grab it below where most of the stems come out and then give it a firm pull. If you yank it, you tend to break a lot of these roots, and the goal is to get all of these root bits out. Now, if I were just to pull it and leave it laying here like this, what would happen is these are tenacious enough that they would just grow on their own. So I want to make sure I put it in a bag. So that's garlic mustard. Happy pulling, everyone. So this is kind of neat because right beside this blooming garlic mustard is a blooming violet. And you can see the difference in the leaves. They're both cordate, so they have this heart shape where the stem comes in. But typically, this is a very small garlic mustard plant. Here's a friend beside it. It's a lot taller. But typically, the violets are going to be very short, low to the ground, maybe 12 inches max, whereas your garlic mustard is going to tend to be a lot bigger. The garlic mustard leaf is much more delicate, feels like the delicate piece of lettuce, whereas the violet is much more waxy and thick. And typically, then the violet is also not going to have that purplish color at the base of the stem. This is the garlic mustard stem base. So you see that purple stem with some hairs toward the bottom. You're not gonna find that on the violet over here. Here's the common blue violet when it's blooming. It's very pretty. And this is the leaf shape and veination. As they're just coming up, these leaves are still curled up, but they're gonna unfurl. And they kind of have a little bit of the look of the garlic mustard leaves. The garlic mustard is much more delicate. These leaves are actually, you can see hairs on the top. That's not the case with garlic mustard. There's one central vein here, and the veins don't go all the way out to the leaf edges, and they're hairy. Plus they stay short. I'm here with a patch of garlic mustard and Dame's Rocket right beside each other, so I just wanted to show you the differences. Here's the Dame's Rocket. I tend to think tends to be a darker leafy green color than the garlic mustard, which tends to be a little more of a yellowish green color to me. The leaves are hairless, so they're smooth, whereas these are more rough and thick. These ones are more delicate. They feel like if you pick this leaf off this garlic mustard, and leave it out, it's gonna shrivel up and dry really fast, whereas the Dame's Rocket leaves tend to be a lot sturdier if you look at them side by side. There's a lot of blooming garlic mustard here with those white flower heads. Dame's Rocket tends to bloom a little later, so it's not blooming yet. And they can really vary in size. So that's garlic mustard. Happy pulling, everyone.